Hi, I'm attorney Renee Osipov with Chelle Law, and we assist parents, guardians, and students with issues surrounding 504 plan accommodations. In this video, I'm specifically talking about, within Texas, what are some simple solutions within a 504 plan. So a 504 plan, even this video I'm speaking in the context of Texas, it's actually codified in federal statutes. So all 50 states actually have to comply with 504 plan requirements and accommodations. 504 plan, like I said, is codified in federal statutes, specifically the Rehabilitation Act, Section 504. In that federal, that's really important, in that federal statute, it's written out what's required of a student to be eligible for a 504 plan. And it's just simply any student who has a physical or mental impairment that substantially limits any major life activities, then they would qualify for 504 plan accommodations. So the important thing to remember about this is that a student can have a mental impairment or physical impairment. So let's talk about what that looks like. So mental impairment might be anxiety, depression, ODD, ADHD, ADD. The Section 504 does not limit what type of diagnosis are actually covered or what type of disability. With physical disabilities, this could be really anything from death, if you TBI, maybe a child's in a wheelchair, cannot walk, mobility restrictions. Again, if you have an accident and there are injuries from that, the 504 accommodations could be short term. If this is a condition from birth or something that's deteriorated over time, the 504 plan can follow the student all the way through their secondary education. And even at the university level, accommodations can be made too. Sometimes they're not actually called a 504 plan, but accommodations can absolutely be granted. So if a student or if a parent or guardian notices that a student has a type of impairment, a simple solution would be just to have that student checked out by a healthcare provider. If there is a diagnosis of either a mental or physical impairment, then the parent or guardian would suggest that the 504 plan be constructed. So the 504 plan team would meet, they would look at that diagnosis, and then they would look at the data within the school and see if that child had a substantial impairment. Then, if they do have a finding of that, then the 504 plan is constructed. So let's talk about some simple solutions. So 504 plan is really going to be accommodations. So these are things that can help or be adjusted for the student within the confines of the school in order to give them the best outcome and so that the student's no longer impaired within the school environment. So things to remember for simple solutions. You want to think not just inside the classroom, but outside the classroom as well. So transition between classes in the hallway, extracurricular activities, cafeteria, and transportation. So if a child's having a difficult time transitioning into the school day, perhaps they need to be picked up by a school bus where an aide is on the bus to help them transition into the classroom, as opposed to just the regular school bus where it may be distracting or can cause anxiety or some type of impairment. So that's a simple solution. Transportation. Simple solutions for transitioning during the school day. Does the child need an aid? Do they need prompts? This is another one that I think gets overlooked. Maybe the student has a hard time adjusting at a quick pace as normal students. So the teacher may indicate either to the class or specifically to that student that within 5 minutes, 15 minutes, 2 minutes, that the class will be transitioning to, a different subject. They'll be leaving the classroom for specials, physical education, or potentially going out to recess, things like that. They're prompted during these transition times. The other thing to remember too is the cafeteria. So if that child is having a hard time, and I have seen from experience, potentially, it can be a sensory overload. Smells, noise, visuals. It can be a lot for a student who potentially could have some type of mental impairment. So what type of simple accommodations could be met? So one, the student is prompted. So you're letting the student know they're preparing themselves or going into this overstimulated environment. Maybe that environment isn't the best for the student to eat their lunch, so they get to go to a different area, or they have more time to eat. Things like that. Those are all simple solutions to what it would be like for a student with impairment in the cafeteria. Also, extracurricular activities can be covered as well. So if there's any type of sports or clubs, accommodations can be made for that student as well. Next, we can kind of talk about accommodations within the classroom. So some simple solutions. I think probably the most popular ones are exams or tests. Students who have anxiety or maybe ADHD or ADD have a difficult time concentrating and focusing and taking the exams. So simple accommodations might mean that the student gets double the time or triple the time as the other students. But it's important to know what's actually triggering that anxiety or that loss of focus. Is it the time frame, so they just need more time? Is it the environment? There's just too many kids and there's too much stimulation. So a simple accommodation might be that they get to leave the classroom and go to a quiet place to take the exam. Potentially, it's just reading the exam itself. The student might not have a reading disability, but they have anxiety around reading. So then the test would get read to them, or staff would be available to read any words that the student may have anxiety around. These are all really simple accommodations, and really all the accommodations on the 504 plan should be simple and straightforward, because you want to remember, even as a parent who's advocating for these accommodations, you need to remember that there are substitutes. There are multiple staff and aides, specials teachers, cafeteria workers, bus drivers, and all of those individuals need to be able to read the 504 plan accommodation, understand it, and be able to implement it. So if there are things written on the accommodations that say extra time for exams, if you have a substitute teacher in, they will not know how much time. Can that student literally sit there all day long and work on that test? Maybe they can, but that's not very common. So again, simple accommodations, but you want them to be detailed enough that if anybody looks at that 504 plan, they will know how to implement it. This will just help everybody in the classroom, but especially the student, so that they're not feeling singled out or discriminated, really. So again, keep it simple, straightforward, but also detailed enough so that anybody who looks at that accommodation can know. If you have any additional questions about 504 plans, you can check out our website, our contact information, and all of that's in the description below this video. Thanks.